Three, two, one.
Here we go! Welcome to the North Carolina Youth and Government YAGcast. We've got another edition of our media podcast featuring an alumni spotlight interview. We're doing something fun for our youth and government program. We're interviewing alumni to get a sense of what they did in the program, what they're up to today, and lessons they've learned along the way. My name is Megan Hoyt, but everyone in this program calls me Boz. And today I'm thrilled to be co-interviewing alongside Cooper Herrick, our current youth governor. We are so excited to be in conversation today with Tyler Fox. Tyler lives in Boston, Massachusetts, and works as a project assistant at Ariadne Labs Delivery Decisions Initiative, where he lives out his passion for improving maternal health outcomes and addressing racial health disparities in the United States. Tyler graduated from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where he studied medical anthropology, and is currently earning his Master's of Public Health at Harvard University. During his time in youth and government, Tyler was the Chief Justice in the Court of Appeals. Tyler, hello, welcome.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I've been
Yeah.
very much looking forward to this. This is going to be good.
Yeah, we love this, and I'm so excited to just have this opportunity to reconnect with you a bit and learn a little bit deeper about not just your time in the program, but especially like what you're up to today. So we have loved starting with just what you did in the program and what that was like for you. But before we dive into youth and government specifically, I'd love to actually just back up a little bit and ask you about your high school experience. We know that it can be pretty different depending on when folks went to high school, but it's really easy to say that high school is the same, and I don't want to make that assumption. So if you could just tell us, like, what was it like to be a high schooler when you were in the program? Tell us, like, what do you remember about that particular life chapter?
Yeah, of course. So I was first in a high school at Mount Tabor in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and that's where I was introduced to the program. And it was relatively large at Mount Tabor too, so it was a lot of fun to get started there. But I actually only stayed at Mount Tabor for 2 years. I transferred to the North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics for my junior and senior year, and that's really what I uh, think most about. I think when it comes to my high school experience, it's by far the hardest school that I've ever been to, and uh, it also was just a lot of fun. I mean, I actually think that I wouldn't be nearly where I am today without the School of Science and Math. I serve on the alumni board. I'm really passionate about it. And it was a really just wonderful learning experience because they just knock a traditional high school curriculum like totally out of the park. It's a lot of it's a lot of really advanced courses. I took organic chemistry when I was there. They have a really fantastic humanities department. It's not in the name, but it's really, really good. And I really did. I loved science and math. I liked my home high school, but I really loved science and math.
That is so fascinating to hear how you like switched. I know that that's how, I think how students like get into science and math, right? But what was it like? I mean, doing youth and government at two different schools then? Like, what was
Yeah,
that?
so at science and math, it was definitely smaller. And if I'm remembering correctly, I helped pull some of that group together. And it was really great. I think we had a good number of folks do legislative. We had a good number of folks do judicial, and it was really fun to see. Honestly, some of my classmates were absolutely brilliant. It was really fun to see some of that think through think through a lot of the legislative issues or the judicial issues of our time. And I would say that it was nice to have a smaller group as well because we were just a little bit more close knit and we were more likely to talk about some of the things that we were working on. So I would say in general, I liked youth and government at science and math. I believe it's still running. I'm actually not entirely sure, but that's something that I should look into. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What was your first memory like on your youth and government journey?
I
Have one?
was, yes. I was a lawyer my first year. and I remember totally tearing through like all of the case law. I read all of it, and I went and I was like a co-attorney with one of my neighbors at the time, and I remember getting there and we were arguing and he said something wrong like in the case law, and then I basically argued like all the rest of the cases from then on out. um which I guess it's a funny memory to me. It probably wasn't so nice for him, but I really enjoyed it. And I actually think back, I've been thinking about this interview for a little bit and about the kinds of things that I like, or the kinds of skills that I took out of youth and government. And I think being able to critically think and think on your toes like you do when you're a lawyer in the appellate system is, it's probably something that I do pretty much every day. So I do I did really enjoy being a lawyer, though I basically moved from there up to an associate justice for a couple of years and then to the chief justice my last year. So I didn't get to spend a lot of time doing it, but I really enjoyed it.
Well, that's a really fun story, Tyler. And I appreciate, you still thinking about those skills you learned today. But one thing I'm curious about, more specifically, is actually running for Chief Justice. What was that experience
Yeah.
like for you?
Um, oh, okay. So I was confident in high school. I think some, including myself, say that I was a little bit too confident. And I was running unopposed with it because there were two people were being elected at the time. It was Deanna Arbelayas. That was her name. And we were running together, and she made this like really excellent speech. And then I get up there and I was basically like, well, you don't really have much of a choice because you have to vote for two of us, which I still think about sometimes. I was like, good Lord, I can't believe I got up there and said that. But I don't know. I think I honestly just think back about how much fun it was, and I guess how comfortable I was in that space to be able to be able to say something like that or be comfortable saying that in front of that many people. But I don't know. In general, it was a really fun process. I don't think I was as worried about the election as some of the like governor candidates. The governor candidates, like they really go after it. The chief justice candidates, I feel like at least during my time, were focused a little bit more on just less on the election and more on the program because there just wasn't a lot of competition. But it was still a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely. As a previous governor candidate myself, who was fortunate enough to win their election, it definitely was a very intense experience that I'm grateful for. But yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely a lot on the line there.
Yeah, this is so interesting to think about. Like, obviously, Chief Justice is like the statewide, office, but the program has historically been a little smaller. Um, I am curious though if you have like thoughts for students who are thinking about running, maybe for those like associate justice roles, because at that point, the game is sort of open to anyone, and there are a number of positions, but I think a lot of students may like count themselves out, right? Or think like, I don't know if I could do that. So talk to us a little bit about that jump, like going from attorney to associate justice. Like, is there anything that you did or anything advice that you would give to students who are thinking about or considering that idea of becoming an associate?
Yeah, it actually wasn't my idea originally. A couple of them talked to me about doing it, and I think that was probably the biggest driver. I mean, I would definitely say if you're considering going for that position, definitely do it. I think having leadership experience at all in high school, I think is really fantastic because you learn a lot about yourself when you're put in those positions. And I also think too that um, if you are an associate justice and you do see somebody that you think would be a great fit, that you have a responsibility to reach out to them and try and pull them into the program because I think I don't know if I would have stuck with it all 4 years if it hadn't been for some of the leadership stuff. I mean, you never know with like high school and all the competing requirements, especially now with just getting into college is so much more competitive than it used to be. That having some like real connection to like one thing is something that I just highly encourage. You just get so much out of the program when you can go behind the scenes and see how it works, and you get to listen to the lawyers argue and mentor them, and it's a lot of fun. It's really rewarding. And I think it's taught me a lot about the concept of like servant leadership, which is something that I like fall back on a lot for my like career now. And it's just something that I really enjoy. I love seeing people thrive. So I think the more folks that can go into those leadership positions and kind of learn that leadership style, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I love how you identified that it wasn't your idea. It
Yeah,
was
no,
your
okay,
way
it
to
definitely
rise.
wasn't.
Because I think that's one of the beauties of the program. It's like if you see something, say something in a good way, to like tap somebody else and identify some potential, or if you see someone doing something really impressive, like tell them.
Yeah,
Because I think that's a really that's a really beautiful culture piece too for the program at large as well.
yeah, for sure. And I think some people don't think of themselves as leaders, and those are generally the people that you want to be leaders. So um, I, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like too that, as you said, you've thought a lot about the skills that you've used from youth and government into the work that you do today. So I know you're super passionate about the work that you do professionally, and also, I mean, going back to school to get your, master's of public health in this space as well. Um, Tell us a little bit about, I mean, like, what's the day in the life? Like, what's your career like? What does that look like? And particularly, like, why is it interesting to you?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I absolutely love my job. This is probably, actually, it definitely is the most professionally satisfied that I've ever been. Um, and I think part of the reason for that is I'm able to see directly the impact of my work, which I've found is like something that really drives me. And we do that at Ariadne through data collection as part of our implementation of what the Delivery Decisions Initiative core intervention is, which is called Team Birth, TEAM. Um, and basically, what that is it's all about deconstructing some of the power hierarchies that are present in the labor and delivery space, and like putting the patient at the center of all the decisions that are made about their care, which you would think happens in a lot of hospital spaces. I think you would be um, kind of shocked. I hope you're shocked to find out that, and a lot of times decisions are made for moms and birthing people rather than with them. So that's really what we're aiming to do with Team Birth. And what I do specifically is I help the strategic development of the program. So a lot of that is bringing in money or identifying like the sites where it makes the most sense for Team Birth to grow alongside my director and my like really fantastic implementation team. I spend more of my time on the operation side than anything else. So it's mostly like communicating with outside stakeholders. But yeah, I mean, really what I love is I can see the direct impact of our work. And that's really just our implementation specialists and our research scientists collecting data as we implement this program, and we're able to see how much more autonomy patients have afterwards, and that's just really rewarding in a space that oftentimes doesn't have a lot of rewarding aspects to it right now, especially coming out of COVID. So no, I really enjoy what I do.
This
Well, it's
is,
really
go ahead. Go ahead.
it's really awesome, Tyler, to hear about how passionate you are for your work and how happy you are in doing it. And I guess one thing I'm wondering is did you think government at all guide you on your path to where you are right now and making those choices to get there?
I would say yes. I think that the biggest thing that youth and government provided me was um, honestly it's being able to like read a room, to read people, to be like really introspective, and to also um, just kind of be able to like adapt to whatever situation that you're thrown into. I picked up a lot of that when I was doing the like lawyer, when I was a lawyer in the program, but I also think that as an associate justice and as chief justice, I mean, like you really never know what's going to be thrown at you. So I think being able to like really think on my feet and to be able to like adapt really quickly and just make changes to things on the fly. I definitely got that from the program. I would say that's one of the things that the program does really well is just kind of getting people comfortable, getting really comfortable with the material so that you're able to adapt to it depending on the situation. And the situation in this case is really just like asking questions and being able to respond to like the justices or the chief justices. It's always down to operational stuff too. Like as a chief justice, we were putting together the court schedules like the night before, and it's just there's all sorts of really fun learning experiences that happen both in preparation for the big convention and being there. So yeah, I would say for sure there are a lot of skills that I pull on.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I guess now I'm kind of wondering more broadly. Obviously, youth and government was a facet that helped of your high school career that helped guide you towards where you are today. But what else? What other experiences in your life have helped you get there? And the reason I ask, as a current high schooler, I guess I'm wondering. Um, I am expected, I feel sometimes, to know everything that I want to do for the rest of my life. And I guess sometimes we're not really told when we should expect to have those experiences that really guide us. So I'm wondering for you, like, when did those come?
Oh man. I honestly I don't even know if some of those like those are some pretty big questions, and I don't know if I have the answers to all of them. I I would say that I've had a couple different experiences with I think like what some might consider failure, what some would also just consider like part like the natural part of growing up. But I mean, when I was in college, I was like really gung ho for public health. UNC has a really excellent undergraduate public health program. I'd been interning in public health before then. Like on paper, it looked really good, and I applied, and I bombed the interview. Like it was so bad. And I remember walking out of the interview and calling my mom, being like, "There's no way I'm going to get this," and I didn't. And I took that pretty hard actually. And I changed my major to medical anthropology, which is uh, honestly a lot. It covers pretty similar stuff to what the social behavioral sciences and public health, but it's all about medicine as a culture and how other like medical systems operate and everything like that. And I mean, it totally transformed the way that I think about health and public health. And I got into maternal health that way. And there's just so many kind of like unexpected twists and turns that have happened in my life. And I think one of the biggest things that I've learned is I really don't like to pass up opportunities. I think that's like as they present themselves, I need to get a little bit better at it because you can start to say yes to too many things, but just really like being okay with trying a bunch of different stuff and being okay with not having a defined path. I think one of my mentors has said just be like really comfortable with not knowing the answer to everything, and I think that that's perfectly okay. I as you're going through your career, there's going to be tons of stuff that happens that's unexpected, and I think rather than trying to control the situation, honestly just going with the flow and seeing what happens has led to some of the like greatest things that have happened to me in my life, from like meeting and marrying my wife to like being in the job that I am now. I mean, like believe me, none of this was planned. So I think a lot of it is just some of it I think is being in the right place at the right time, and I also think that some of it is just taking every opportunity that you can, and now being more introspective about the opportunities that are provided and which ones make the most sense for your path. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that advice. That really is reassuring to hear.
Yeah. You're
Yeah,
not going
that
to
was
know everything. That's good, man.
yeah.
I
And
wouldn't even
that
try.
and that was such a beautiful question though, and just like a beautiful way that you framed it too, Tyler, because I think listening to you both ask and answer that question, what I'm struck by is both the like hindsight's 2020, you know, like
Yeah.
we can look back and you can always connect the dots to where you are because you've done it, you know, and that's the advantage of like being introspective and reflective, which not everyone is, right? But also what I love is that you gave us all a window into like how you said yes to opportunities, you know, and just trying them out and being willing to just see where it kind of took you, to really follow your interest as opposed to thinking like, I've got to have a passion, I've got to have this all figured out, you know, feels like today's so much more pressure in that way.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I think people put too much pressure on themselves, myself included, but I don't know. It's a lot
Yes,
more.
we're all a work in progress, that's for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Um, I'm curious, given that you are so passionate about your work, I'd love to know if you are also involved in other ways locally, like in your community. Obviously,
Yeah.
we think about youth and government, the motto, right, being that democracy needs to be learned by every generation, but there's a lot of ways, I think, to practice democracy, especially at a local and just like a very, you know, personal level. So what does that look like for you now at your
Yeah.
current life stage?
I mean, I think about it in a couple different ways. And that's meant, I think, different things to me as I've, especially over the past couple of years. I've been a big brother and big brother, big sister. I loved that program. It's a lot of fun. And as like I got into graduate school, I unfortunately had to stop doing that, mostly because of time and like the ability to commit time. But I think since then, in Boston, I'm on the board of an organization that's getting started called the Prospera Institute. And that's really focusing on having research that's kind of independent from like large university systems, kind of like the Rand Institute, if you know what that is. And they are basically aiming to focus a lot more research around Hispanic and Hispanic populations and like aiming also kind of in like the racial disparity arm. And I just started that a couple months ago, and that's been really interesting. It's fascinating to see how a nonprofit gets built. And we've got this really amazing founder who's working really, really hard to make it happen. So that's been a lot of fun. I've also really enjoyed my time on the alumni board for the School of Science and Math, and I think that's a little bit of a different community because it's not the Boston community. But I really do mean it. Like that school did so much for me, and I feel so strongly about giving back to that community that I have always said that I would much rather give my time and money there, I think, than any of the other schools that I've attended. So they just do really amazing things with education, and they do great things for the kids. So it's yeah, I would say that's probably where I've been focusing most of my like volunteer out of school, out of work time. But I'm excited to pick up some more stuff once school's finished. I have one more semester to go, and then we'll see what happens. We'll see what pops up.
It's really exciting to hear how you've stayed engaged in the different communities that meant a lot to you, because I think it's it's hard to move and then plant roots and do that somewhere else. But it's really what right like is fulfilling.
Yeah.
So I love hearing that you've stayed engaged in different ways too. If there were students who were interested in like your line of work or the college major that you chose, would you have any advice to give to them specifically, especially if they're thinking of like, you know, moving into public health or pivoting or doing something, you know, maybe a little non-traditional? I'm curious if you've got any thoughts in that space.
Yeah, public health is huge. It's a huge field, and in a lot of ways, it's like burgeoning. It's changing. There's so much stuff that's happening in the field to make it really interesting. I would say that if you're aiming to make a lot of money, that public health is probably not the way to go. But I also think that my dad's always said that work is a lot more interesting when you follow like passions, and the money will come; it'll take care of itself. And I do think that that's true. I also think that's a pretty privileged way to look at things. So I don't know. I'm still thinking on that one, but But yeah, I think public health is it's a really fascinating career, especially for folks that don't really want to go into clinical practice. I couldn't dissect like a fetal pig, so there's no way that I was going to be a doctor. Um, and I think that it's a really fulfilling place to sit right now because I think there are so many pressing public health challenges that the United States is facing. I mean, it's why I picked the um, maternal health crisis specifically in the US. I just thought there was so much space for innovation and creativity and so many interventions that you could put in place to help address that problem. I mean, the opioid epidemic is massive and touches so many lives. I mean, everything down to like the bicycle helmets that you wear to food safety. I mean, public health is basically in every aspect of your life. So I would say that if you're thinking about public health, you should definitely do it. I'm more than happy to talk with you. And I would also highly suggest going and working in practice somewhere before you go and get your MPH. I think that you get so much more out of that kind of program. You have work experience and you know what you want to come in for. And I would say for medical anthropology, it's really framed the way that I think about things. I I hadn't really thought about medicine as a culture, and I really wasn't even that good of a writer when I went into that program. And I just think it's really taught me about how there are like structures and systems outside of things that you would think that impact health that do really impact health. I mean, everything from the neighborhood you grow up in, the air you breathe, your proximity to highways, the food you have access to, where grocery stores are built. I mean, there's all sorts of systems in play that impact how healthy you're going to be in your life. So I think the more that you spend time like thinking about that, I think the more that you realize that there are definitely systems that are set up against groups of people, like versus others, especially in the US. And I think public health and medical anthropology are really interesting ways to think about mitigating those kinds of disparities that we see. But I do think that it's also the responsibility of everybody, not just people inside of public health. So I don't know. There's a lot that you can do in medicine, but I think MedAnth and public health were a really, really fun way to look at health in the US specifically.
Well, I know you're still in school right now, Tyler, finishing up. But I guess I'm curious, whether in undergrad or grad school, like how have you chosen what activities you're involved in?
Yeah, I rode crew in college, and I loved it so much. I was on a call with the guys that I rode with last night actually, and we still talk. Like we all live together, but we still talk pretty regularly, and we've been out of school for almost 5 years. So um, I think rowing did a lot for me, especially in terms of like time management was a big one, and also like the meaning of like working really collectively towards like a common goal is definitely one. I learned what my limits are and how to like continue pushing them. Um, I also learned that like exercise is a really great way to um, manage, I would say, like some of the mental health challenges that I've had in my life too. I mean, it's probably pretty obvious that, or well, in some ways, I think it's obvious that I've like had issues with anxiety, like and all sorts of stuff. I have lots of energy and I spend a lot of time like thinking and doing things. But I think the thing that I liked about rowing was that I could only focus on rowing, and I was so tired that you could basically just like be at a constant state of peace, which I really enjoyed, and it's something that I miss. And I am sad that I don't do it as much anymore. I would say at the School of Public Health, I spend a lot of my time working. So I work full time and I go to school part time. So I think my activities in that realm have been pretty limited. But I'm getting ready to be a teaching fellow, which is the same thing as a TA. It's Harvard's pretentious way of saying a TA. Um, and and I'm really excited about that. I'm going to get to work with a professor that I know like relatively well in a class that I took and feel really passionate about. So I think That's just another one of those things where she just like emailed me and was like, "Hey, like I have the spot open. Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So I think, yeah, yeah, I think those are really where I spend most of my time. I also got a puppy recently, so that's been a lot of fun too. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's all really fascinating. Rowing is that's a super cool area I'm honestly not super familiar with, and I also think it's really wonderful that you're able to give back to your Harvard community by serving as a teaching fellow, as you said.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about that. It's fun to get a glimpse into what teaching's like, even though I don't think I'll stay in academia, but it's still cool to see.
Tyler, you have given us like just so many lessons and so many nuggets. But I'm curious if there's like a best piece of advice that you've ever been given, something that has like remained with you or helped guide you at certain moments of maybe decision making.
Mm. I think of one that actually my director gave me that's kind of really reframed how I think about work. Um, and that's really that you just don't have to be good at everything. Like there are just going to be some things that other people shine and that you don't have to try and shine as much as them in that area, and that's totally fine. I think an example that I throw out all the time, I'm terrible at designing things. I make the ugliest PowerPoints ever. They're awful. And I have this like really great intern that's interning with me right now, and I've got an amazing coworker too that just like I can tell them exactly what I'm thinking, and then they like crank out the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. And it's so much more effective use of everybody's time because they can do it in 2 minutes. I can tell them what I want, and then we can just like go on and do our own thing. And I think the biggest thing that I like rambling a lot about it, but the biggest thing that I've taken away from it is probably just like really finding and being integrated in a good group of people where you can like build off of each other's talents and capabilities. I think there's no like one person isn't really meant to be good at all the skills that you're going to need to thrive in whatever space that you exist in. And I think the more that you're finding a group of friends or coworkers, and you're building each other up and you're working towards a common goal that you all believe in. I mean, that's like the most fruitful and the most like ideal work environment or school environment that you can exist in. And I mean, I'm really lucky to have found that. I think not a ton of people find that in over the course of their career. So yeah, I think that's really how that piece of advice, just like being okay with like focusing on a couple things. And I'm not saying to stop developing or growing in areas that you're interested in, but like if you're not really interested in it and you're not really good at it, and there's somebody that work super well with that does it really well, that's fine. That's great. Just like work on a team and be happy with what you can accomplish together.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's definitely it.
the win-win. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Win-win.
Well, I guess, like Boz was saying, Tyler, you have so many nuggets of just knowledge to share with us. And one thing I'm curious about now is, I guess, what's something you'd want to tell your younger self? And who would that younger self be? And obviously, why that information?
Um, that's a really good question. I I think one of the things that I've been focusing on a lot more lately, and something that I would probably tell my younger self is the like, and I promise I'm going somewhere with this. The brand name of things don't really matter. And I would say that in regards to education, the clothes you wear, the like technology you have. I think I spent a lot of time when I was younger, like either like really idolizing an Ivy League education or like really like wanting to make a lot of money so that because I like considered that with success and stuff like that. So I think one of the things that I've been realizing more lately is none of that stuff really matters. I mean, I think as long as you're able to like take care of yourself and your family and you can provide a good life in whatever realm that means for you. I think that's probably what I would go back and tell my younger self. I think I would make some different decisions. In terms of like the things that I like went for and spent my time on. I mean, I was like gung ho on going to Harvard in undergrad, and I am so happy that I ended up at UNC. Like, I loved UNC. UNC was a great decision, and I don't think I would have been as happy if I was up in undergrad at Harvard. And I was really bummed to be going to UNC, which I think, um, like people are kind of surprised to hear, but it was like by far one of the like best decisions that I've ever made. And I like a car that I had, the axle recently broke, and I like got a Volkswagen, and I love my Volkswagen. I mean, there's just like all sorts of stuff where I feel like if I'm focusing on like the long term, the like things that I would like to achieve in my life, and kind of like let all the other crap kind of melt away. It's been a really fun kind of like clarifying experience for me. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds
that's
like
really
your
lovely.
values. Yeah, your
Yeah.
values are like solidifying. Yeah,
Yeah, they really are.
like really interesting ways. Yeah, it's
Wouldn't
beautiful.
it have been cool if that happened like 10 years ago?
I'm no developmental expert, but I'm pretty sure that's just not how it goes for us.
Yeah,
I think
probably
it
not.
only comes with maturity, perhaps.
Yeah. So
Yeah, but that was really intentional, and yeah, thanks for that, Tyler. To end us, we're going to do a fun round of questions. These are questions that everyone who comes on the YAGcast is answering, and they have been generated by our entire officer team. So while Cooper is the only officer who's on the call tonight with us doing this co-interview, all of the officers have had input into this part of the YAGcast process. So I'm going to let Cooper take it away and ask you these kind of fun ending, hopefully, questions.
All right. So first one up is a this or that question. So Friday fun night or governor's gala?
Friday fun night.
That's the right choice.
Yes.
I
All
love
right.
that. I love Friday fun night. It's a blast.
Like no notes. He's like, that's it. Yeah.
That's it. I think we did a poker night one night or something. God, it was so much fun. There were some that I really enjoyed. Yeah, definitely Friday fun night.
Awesome. So, what's the most impactful book you read, or what's your favorite book you've read?
My favorite book that I've read it a few times now. It's Mountains Beyond Mountains. It's by Tracy Kidder. And it's all about Paul Farmer, who's a huge name in medical anthropology and public health. And he unfortunately died about this time last year. Now that I think about it, it might be a little bit longer ago. But I mean, it was hugely influential, I think, to how you think about public health and like what it means to like have health as a human right, that people are like people should just have health or have access to healthcare and have basically everything that they need. And I think you're going to find even in the United States that that's really not the case. But it's this really, really wonderful story about this guy that like travels around with Paul Farmer as he's setting up Partners in Health. It's super interesting. And I would definitely encourage everybody to read it. It's beautifully written.
Awesome. And our final question, and I know we've spent a lot of time, like just now, talking about your path to public health, and how that's been a pretty clear journey for you. But what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Um, I mean, half of me is like, I really don't think there's anything else that I would want to be doing right now. Um, I think the other half is like, if I wanted to do something like not very, or well, in my mind, it's not very stressful. I'm sure it's more stressful in real life. I don't know. I'd probably want to like travel, like be a travel writer or something. I feel like that would be really fun. Maybe like write a cookbook, even though I can't really cook. Yeah, something like that. I would want to do something like pretty outside of the realm of what I'm currently doing if I had to. But I honestly think I'm right where I want to be right now. There's nothing that I really want to change. So I don't know.
Yeah,
Good.
I appreciate your resoluteness and your answers. It seriously is reassuring to hear that you can get to that point in your life. But those are some really interesting also alternatives, things I wouldn't think about normally.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you all so much. This has been a lot of fun, and I'm really going to look forward to hearing the next kind of iterations of this podcast. I think you guys have a really neat list of people that you've interviewed already, so it's going to be fun to see who's up next.
Oh, and we have been honored to add you to the list of folks, Tyler. Thank you so much for just how you think about things and how you share the lessons of just your life so candidly with us tonight. I have learned a lot, and I know that everyone who listens will too. So thank you, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yes, it's been a blast. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Cooper.